our company is really good. I think we have the ability to have a top, 5 collective in the country. I think we're trending that way.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. Robotics club, space club, and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? No, forget that. How about a margarita club? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge and join the best club in town. 10 flavors of margaritas like Maui Wowie, burnt pineapple, and mango tango. Try all 10 of them and receive your own souvenir margarita glass. Make it your new Monday night tradition. $4 margaritas and $4 taco baskets. Grab the crew and head on over. Monday nights or any night. Upside Bar and Lounge, 29th and Lake.
Are you tired of living in pain? Time to take control. Prairie Orthopedics. We're your one-stop shop for expert care in Lincoln. From broken bones to complex reconstruction, our skilled team will help you get back on track. Visit ortho.com today and discover why we're the trusted choice for thousands of patients. Don't let pain hold you back. Take the first step towards a better pain-free life with Prairie Orthopedic and Plastic Surgery, where healing begins. Call 402-489-4770.
Black Nuts on The Ticket.
Okay. Playing 93 points on The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza, please.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa,
That's a lot of pizza.
stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Alexa, you're my best friend. Gather round. This is the Ticket Water Cooler.
This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game.
Coming at you live in the heart of Lincoln, America.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
On air and online at theticketfm.com. Here are your hosts, Jake Bakoven and Enrique Alvarez Clearing.
So the predictions beginning of the week are coming to fruition as the conference realignment is happening to your teams, your favorite team's conference, the Big Ten, as it has invited Oregon and Washington to join. I believe they will have a vote that could take place later this afternoon, according to Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. Big Ten vote on Oregon and Washington could take place late afternoon. This thing is not official. It is all but official. You got to cross the T's, dot the I's, make sure nobody in the Big Ten is necessarily too frustrated about it. Which about adding these schools without TV contracts. That might mean a little bit less for each school, although it has been reported throughout this time that Oregon and Washington will not receive a full membership like many of the members will here in the Big Ten. You also have to wonder if UCLA, USC are on the voting in the Big Ten, because they reportedly did not want any other California schools to join them in the Big Ten, and maybe that expands to the West Coast, which is kind of odd because you would think regionally for the other sports that would make sense, but maybe kind of be the show in town. So it looks like it's happening. Oregon and Washington to the 10. College football changed as we know it, and again, we knew this change was coming. Change has been happening, and so college football already has made that shift. But this is now a Big Ten with 18 teams scheduled to be in it. That, of course, changes from the super conferences we've seen before, the 16 teams in the SEC. Pac-12, obviously, is probably going to disintegrate or at least never be what it was before. And just a lot of questions about what's next. What are your initial thoughts on Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten?
Well, I am fascinated with the money side of things. And the reason why on both sides, for the Big Ten and for the Pac-12, the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-7, potentially going to be the Pac-5 if Arizona and Arizona State do decide to join the Big 12 conference. First, let's start here with the Big Ten side of things, right? You sign a 7-year, $7 billion deal. That's usually, around $70 million per year annually, per school, I should say, per school annually. what's really going to be fascinating is what percentage of that pie do Oregon and Washington get out of the gate. And the reason is because we know what amount was for them or in the if they chose to stay in the Pac-12, which probably would have been pretty cushy, honestly. So now they decide to leap, right? Similar to Nebraska, they didn't get a full media rights piece, but when USC and UCLA decided to be the first ones to kind of come on over, they got a full slice. So, I mean, it paid off for USC and UCLA because they took a gamble and they're going to get a full piece of that pie. Oregon and Washington will not. None of the schools that join the Big Ten from here on out will get a full piece. So that part's interesting. And then what happens with the Pac-12 or what's left of the Pac-12, the Pac-7 basically, because you're probably going towards an avenue of a Pac-12 and Mountain West merge. And so with that in mind, the remaining teams that are in the Pac-5 or Pac-7 rather, that would go to the Mountain West are Washington State, Oregon State, probably Stanford and Cal. And then those are, well, and then I'm missing one more on there because Utah would be going the Big 12. But anyway, so it's probably just going to be those four teams that end up, and maybe Arizona State if they can figure out some legislature stuff going on in Arizona. But with there we go. With all that in mind, I am intrigued to see what the new media rights deal for the Mountain West is, because Mountain West has their media rights deal that goes through 2026 or 2027, and that will be renegotiated, and there will probably be a little bit more involved in that now with the addition of those schools. So I think it's just like kind of this like waiting game to see how much more each school gets from the Mountain West than they were going to get, or how less each school is going to get then from their potential Apple deal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, the Pac-12 is just, and I mean, this is the death blow. I mean, if you don't think the UCLA USC one is, I mean, this is the one that actually, they're still, again, for the analogy, kind of on life support, still breathing. This is going to destroy the conference, as we know, which has a long history, obviously, with the Rose Bowl and all that, dating back, since the beginning of college football. And so it is kind of sad to see the Pac-12 be what it is, but this has been this arms race between the Big Ten and the SEC. And somebody on the text line kind of points out, this is the Pac-12's moment where they're breaking down, but you have to believe almost that the ACC is next. I don't know how long it might last until 2036 if they can keep everything legality with their TV contracts and land of grants deal and all that stuff. But with Florida State already being vocal and Clemson kind of peaked, that could be the next conference that kind of gets destroyed here. And it just, again, leads toward this kind of super conferences where the Big Ten and the SEC might eventually, I mean, I just don't know if you keep the college football playoff the same. It doesn't really make sense now to have the 6 best conference champions. The Big Ten and SEC are going to want bigger pieces of the college football playoff pie because they've got all the brands, they've got all the names that across college football. Notre Dame is looking to sign its new Under Armour deal today. On a side note, but they have been pretty vocal about staying independent because they have their own giant TV contract. They don't want to split it with anybody. So how they kind of fit in all this is interesting. But when you when you're projecting years from now, it's hard to know. And I think it is going to continue to happen. I predicted this years ago, and it's more on track than ever that you're going to kind of have this AFC, NFC type of thing with the Big Ten in the SEC. You might have some other conferences around there, or I don't know if they will. They might eventually decide the money's the money. Big Ten and SEC merge into just making it a championship among themselves. Or what's worse, because you don't have a commissioner in the sport, is that everybody continues to look out for themselves, and the SEC and the Big Ten are just different leagues with different champions, and the breakaway from the NCAA happens. there's really no telling what the end all of this is, except for that it's nothing but money grab and TV contracts, which also are interesting as we talk about the streaming deal that the Pac-12 potentially had. For years, there was talk about cable and lack of, sports, live sports, kind of the only thing keeping it alive from all the cable cutters. And so a first streaming deal would have been interesting, and it might still happen, just to a much larger, lesser.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to. I was kind of getting at is like for the Mountain West, for example, right? They have some of the deals with CBS are part of it because you have those late night games between San Diego State and Fresno State or Utah State, whatever it is. Just some of those Western Conference, or I should say Western part of the country type of games late at night that are on CBS Sports and not CBS. So they're already somewhat intertwined with it, but this gives them an opportunity that if there's some reconstruction of the current media rights deal, maybe they pull out of it. Maybe they pull out and they say, you know what, we're going to allow a place like Apple to just take over fully, and that's more money that we can then invest into the Big Ten, right? And we can become a bigger player in the Big Ten conference, or maybe we dip into whatever they want to play, or in the Mountain West becomes this Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2 type of product. But Bach, I'll be honest, like the Big 12 is doing work. The Big 12, never forget, at about a year ago this time, obviously UCLA and USC, when they left the Pac-12, you could kind of see the writing starting to be written on the wall that the Pac-12 was going to disintegrate at some point. It was just a matter of time. That's why the Big Ten cleared and vetted and cleared Oregon and Washington last summer. It's because they saw there was forward thinking in that. And I think maybe that's what some of the holdup is with the Big 12 adding teams like Arizona and Utah more specifically, because they still have to go through the entire vetting process. They have to make sure that it makes sense, not only from obviously geographical isn't as important anymore, but most importantly, financial decisions, right? For both sides. But last summer, the Big Ten clears Oregon and Washington to join them, and vice versa. Oregon and Washington find out and realize and understand that, okay, yeah, it makes sense for us financially to join the Big Ten conference if it does get to that point. Well, it now has. And I just think when the Big 12, a year ago, we were sitting there going, yep, it's going to be the Big 10 and the SEC. It's just going to be two teams or two conferences, and maybe it still is. But the Big 12 is doing work. Like adding those upper echelon group of 5 teams is good for the short term. And then I also think it has improved their geographical pull over Florida, over Cincinnati, and in those areas. And now if they add Utah, they somewhat get an upper a northwest type of presence. They get a southwest type of presence with Arizona and Arizona State if that comes into play. There's an opportunity. Like we're talking about how the Big Ten has expanded, obviously from border or coast to coast. Big 12 also somewhat has.
They're in all 4 time zones. The problem that the Big 12 is always going to have is they don't have the name brand.
Absolutely.
They are
absolutely,
if they are third among conferences, and you can argue between them in the ACC. The ACC looks like it's falling apart. They haven't been proactive because they've figured they are pretty much safe with their deals. But now Florida State's calling out. Clemson's looking around. It's looking bad for them. But the problem is as this continues, like where does realignment end is where you have to question. And that's where the Big 12 is just never going to catch up with the brand names that the Big 10 continues to add, that the SEC added. So, they might find a nice little spot. And if the future of college football is going to continue to include them and want them as part of it. But the problem is, again, here, when you're splitting the money in a college football playoff, it just doesn't make any sense to evenly distribute it with the Big 12 if you're in the Big 10 and the SEC. So you've got a lot of very uncertain times ahead for what this sport's going to look like 10 to 15 years and who's going to be included in it. And the Big 12, I think, especially the Big 12 was going to be the Pac-12. So compared to where they were, to where they are, they've done a magnificent job throughout all of this.
And honestly, like for the Big 10, I think this just shows the differences in conferences. The Big 10 and the SEC are always going to be king. They're always going to be king. But I think there is room for a third major conference in the future landscape of college football. And give credit to the Big 12, because at one point we didn't know, all right, is there going to be a Big 12 Pac-12 merger where they really, hold tight on the Western coast, or is there going to be just ACC going to take over the Big 12? We didn't know which one it was going to be. And give credit, because this is the differences in the two conferences, the Big 10, and the Big 12. The Big 10 is able to sit back and say, we'll let this play out, and we'll be real methodical and strategic with how we want to handle this. The Big 12 didn't necessarily have that luxury. So Brent Yormack comes in, the Big 12 commissioner, and has to be like, we're going to be on the hunt from day one till the end of our time when we need to be, because we need to show that, hey, we are going to be the conference. And it's the opposite of George Kliavkoff. Big 12 is in the position where they're going, we need to be the conference to say we are going to be the third power conference. They didn't even give the ACC really a chance. The ACC, they were so far, the Big 12, were so far out in front of getting all the teams that they could, and wheels were already in motion to where they added UCF, Cincinnati, and those schools, and BYU. The wheels were somewhat already in motion there. It helped out that they were already going to add those teams. As you said, they aren't the name brands, but they've already been in the conference realignment discussion for multiple years now. The ACC hasn't. They've been so active in this. We want to add everybody that doesn't have a place, and we just want all the teams because we aren't dying. We'll allow the ACC and the Pac-12 to die instead.
Well, and again, maybe because of their desperate position, they had to be proactive, and
absolutely,
that is setting them up to be, again, at least maybe outlast the ACC. Again, I don't know where any of this ends, because right now you have 18 teams in the Big 10, 13 teams in the Big 12, 16 teams in the SEC, and the Big 10 and the SEC have been just kind of plucking the best out of the other conferences. And so, the big name brands are going to continue to flock toward the Big 10, flock toward the SEC. If the ACC breaks apart, it's the big name brands that are going to end up in those conferences. And again, so much to question there. The SEC has still stayed pretty much regional, in the Southeast. The Big 10 has not. Does the Big 10, if the ACC starts to kind of break down, do they find a way to get a Florida State or a Clemson, where you would typically think, okay, those teams are going to just go over to the SEC? There's been talk about Virginia, North Carolina, better fits for the Big 10 academically, and maybe seen as more easy to get because of the those big brand names going to the SEC. Again, I don't know, as it plays out, we kind of have to sit back and watch this thing. But again, it just has so many different ramifications. Are you going to play non-conference games if you have 18 teams in a conference? No. Why would you? How are you going to split that up to play? You can't play everybody every 4 years, probably. It's going to change all the scheduling. The non-conference, I don't know how much they're going to look at that anymore. And then you kind of think about like basketball, the other sports that are just kind of, as a result of football and TV contracts, just going to kind of have to play along with whatever the end product is.
So Bach, actually, it's interesting that you brought that up, because I do want to talk about like other sports and what it looks like here in the future. And whenever we get to that, that's fine. I think it's going to be pretty heavy on conference realignment here for the next couple hours or so. Because I definitely want to get like Austin's thoughts in the happy hour and stuff. I think what's so interesting is when you look at, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so with 20 to 24 teams, right now the Big 10 is sitting at 18. Is there any way, I think it's almost for certain, that they get 24? I really think that they're going to get 6 more. And the reason I think that is a texter texts in and says, Big Daddy Travis, we cannot have 9 teams on each side. The Big 10 will end up with 20 or 24 teams and have groups. And Big Daddy Travis hits it right on the head, because number one, you can't have two divisions with 9 teams in each is way too many teams in a division. Second of all, if you were just to go to 20 teams and have 4 divisions, 5 teams isn't enough to have in a division, in my opinion. So I think, therefore, you need to have 6 teams in each division and have 4 divisions, which is 24 teams. And in a way there, You have two, or just for easy conversation's sake, East, West, North, South divisions, right? And you have the North and South division champion playing a semifinal game, and you have the East and West division playing a semifinal game. And the winner of those two games plays in the Big Ten championship.
Well, but again,
I understand that you're adding another game onto your schedule, but when you're not playing non-conference games, you can find ways to work around that.
When you have
because sorry to interrupt you, Bach.
Go ahead.
Because when you have, everybody understands and knows that postseason football in every sport, postseason games dramatically bring in a lot more money than regular season games. So if you're the governing body, or you're the Big Ten Conference right now, you're sitting there going, all right, so we can figure out a way to add postseason games. Okay, fine. Let's take away a regular season game. We can start the season at the same exact time, but we just end it 1 week, or end the regular season 1 week sooner, and we play preseason or postseason football. That's towards the whole entire NFL landscape. And do we like it? No, it's not fun. That's where we're going.
I mean, it will be fun. It'll be different.
It'll be fun if you're in it.
The problem is you can't go back.
You're right.
It'd be fun if this is a one-off.
But we said the same thing about playoffs too.
Yeah,
and we're never going back to like a BCS.
Well, right. You just won't. So it's always gonna change. It's always gonna evolve. I don't know. I think you have to kind of sit back and think about how much do you need conference championships? How much does a conference championship really mean anymore with the 12-team playoff?
Yeah.
And 18 teams in a conference. How are you going to figure out who deserves to get there?
But I would also say, though, on the flip side, if you didn't have that format, can you imagine the amount of arguments of people saying those weren't the two best teams?
Yeah.
So either way, you're going to run into arguments, and I think for the most competitive advantage and competitive way, you have to have them play the game. You got to play the game.
But if this goes to an NFL format where there is two big conferences, it's not like they play an AFC like a regular season conference championship.
Well, I know, but that's where you're heading though with 24 teams in a conference.
Yeah, I mean it's just crazy. We'll see.
Because at this point, sorry, Buck, we keep thinking about things. Like at this point, I see probably them adding two more teams from the ACC. Maybe that's Florida State, and maybe that's a Duke or whoever, or some name brand, a Wake Forest, even in that conversation. And then it's like, all right, then we're going to take a wait and see approach and who needs to be scooped up. It's wild.
A lot more to figure out as the super conference era is officially taken off, and maybe it already has. But the 18 teams expands the way we're going to see college football. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk more of this on the Ticket Water Cooler on 93.7 The Ticket.
I heard you and Jack had a disagreement.
Yeah, he says I keep things from him.
What are you going to do?
He loves the Nebraska Lottery's Powerball First Millionaire of the Year promotion. So I'll buy a Powerball with Power Play and Double Play ticket before August 14th, and I could be one of 15 winners of $1,000. I'll also be entered for a chance to win a trip to New York City for New Year's Eve and a chance at $1 million.
$1,000? That should make him happy.
Depends.
On what?
If I decide to tell him I won.
Powerball top prize odds, 1 in 292 million.
What are you doing? I can play and double play tickets.
I have to sit through this video meeting for work.
Do they realize how big the jack is?
I know, but these blowhards keep rambling on.
I don't want to miss my chance to win millions of dollars.
Well, neither do I, but how do I get these windbags to speed it up?
Dave, you're not on mute.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Play Powerball from the Nebraska Lottery. Top prize odds, 1 in 292 million.
Too many people believe that chronic pain, allergies, or illness are permanent and something you're stuck with. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness has been proving that narrative wrong for 29 years and changing lives for the better in the process. Their team is trained in the newest, most advanced pain-relieving techniques and ways to deal with toxins, allergies, pollution, and emotion that make you ill. Call today for a free consultation at 531-254-5695 or go to novotnynutritionandwellness.com. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness, located at 7th and Superior.
You've driven by GE Landscape Supply countless times, likely without even knowing, at 6701 Cornhusker Highway. Now it's time to stop in. GE Landscape Supply sells to homeowners and contractors with a vast selection of landscaping and construction material. They sell to 5 And for dating, stop by 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. on SAS.com for more info or call 402-467-1627.
Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul. Smoked meats, amazing sides. The only problem when they fix you a plate is that at some point, that plate will be empty. But hear me out. What if that plate was never empty? That dream can be your reality with the Mary Ellen's Express Lunch Buffet. From 11 to 2 every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. One price, all you can eat, and it even comes with a drink. Tell your boss you're taking a long lunch and get down there. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul at 29th and Pine Lake. Let them fix you a plate.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jake Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-677. Advanced Medical Imaging.
Clubs, robotics club, stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? No, forget that. How about a margarita and join the best club in town? Margaritas like Maui Wowie, Burnt Pineapple, and Mango Tango. Try all 10 of them and receive your own souvenir margarita glass. Edition. $4 margaritas and $4 taco baskets. Grab the crew and head on over Monday nights or any night. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service bumper to bumper, we'll treat your vehicle like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% off, mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
Ironhide Construction is hiring. They're looking for hardworking, self-motivated individuals or team players. Our construction manager, estimator, a skilled laborer, and erector or installer. They will train the right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way. Integrated Life Choices has been inspiring opportunities for individuals with disabilities for 15 years in Lincoln and across Nebraska by offering a number of services. From group homes to independent living resources and job training, you'll find the support that allows people to live fulfilling lives. They're also hiring. If you're looking for a rewarding career supporting people with developmental disabilities, you can check out open positions along with learning more about services at ilc.net. Integrated Life Choices. Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7
to the Ticket Water Cooler on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We're back in a crazy day of conference realignment. We've talked about it. We've speculated about it all week now. It is all but official. Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten. The latest news on what that means for the remaining Pac-12 members. Brett McMurphy tweeting out Arizona State and Utah now showing interest in the Big 12. Arizona has already applied for Big 12 memberships, but Big 12 now exploring its options following the news of Oregon and Washington leaving for the Big 10. If you've kind of been tracking it, the Big 12 reportedly wanted to stay at 14. That's why, or get to 14 and then stay there, which is why Arizona might be leaving without Arizona State. But now that there's an 18-team conference, you can kind of see the way that things are looking for the future of college football. And like you said earlier, Nick, I don't even know if you expected to stay at 18, that these are going to become bigger and bigger conferences, that perhaps the Big 12 would look to expand to 16 teams. And who knows? I mean, as this thing goes, maybe even more. I mean, the Big 12, as they do have all the time zones covered, and even if they do add Arizona State, and Utah, might it make some sense to grab a team from California?
You talking about the Big 12?
For the Big 12.
Absolutely, because you're trying to just expand your or geographical footprint. Like that's honestly what the Big 12. That is what needs to be the Big 12's goal right now. They're not going to add the Clemsons of the world. They're not going to be able. They obviously weren't able to add Utah. Like I've said, is a hell of a grab for the Big 12, right? Because we're not talking about UCF and Cincinnati there. We're talking about a team that's been in the Rose Bowl the last 2 years.
Won the Pac-12
the Pac-12 the last 2 years, right? And so that is a hell of a grab for the Big 12. And you preserve somewhat of a rivalry there with the Holy War with BYU.
Absolutely.
So that's a big W for the Big 12. So I think right now, if you're the Big 12, you do look at like a Cal. Maybe the academic standards are too high, but I mean, seriously, you're talking about
academics.
Yeah, and exactly, right? Because Stanford, athletic department wise, is one of the most successful in a very long time.
Oh yeah,
but maybe not in football, and they're going through a transition with David Shaw now out as head coach, and so like you're going through a transition, but as we use the term quite often in Wild Wild West, that's what this is. You're just trying to just add so many teams that nobody else can come in and say, well, you don't have enough. You got to be done.
We welcome you to join the conversation as well. Honda of Lincoln hotline, 402-464-5685. Starter Heyman text line, same number, 402-464-5685. Adam in Lincoln is on the Honda of Lincoln hotline. Adam, how's it going?
Good. How you guys doing today?
Oh, not too bad.
Wild, Adam.
Yeah.
I know. So I got a question for you. I was listening to your take a little bit ago on the semifinals deal with like the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
What do you do with the other? I think it's 24 other 20 teams for that last game. Do they just play a lesser game, or then do you hurt yourself by possibly eliminating a team that loses one of those games out of the playoff contention by picking up a third loss or a second loss, as it may be, however it all works out? Do you think it hurts yourself more than it helps you? Or is that money in that semifinals game override kind of that miss out opportunity?
Thanks, Adam. I think it'd be hard to try to convince teams to play another game. And the only reason I say that is like injury wise, health wise. From a money standpoint, I think the Big Ten, if it's as successful, I mean, you're talking about those, and this is where it's interesting. If you're talking about in those semifinal games, you could have Ohio State versus Michigan. Like, because if the Big Ten really wanted to rework divisions here, they could do it to where Ohio State plays Michigan in a final. And that, I mean, rivalries are done. They're done. And so even one of more college football's more traditional rivalries and more exciting rivalries, not that I'm a fan of it. I want to make that very clear. All these things that like I'm mentioning, I'm not a huge fan of them. But it's just kind of what it is. I'm not a fan of only having 3 conferences in the country. I'm not a fan of what we talked about during the break, Bach, of where like Washington State is going to struggle immensely trying to hire a coach. They're going to struggle immensely on the recruiting trail more than they already are, and they don't get any national recognition. So to answer Adam's question, though, the Big Ten could be real strategic in how they organize divisions to where you could be talking about a semifinal game that features Ohio State versus USC on one side, and then a Michigan versus Penn State or a Michigan versus Oregon on the other side. And I think you'd be able to generate enough revenue from those two games that it would make up for and be okay not having everybody else play. But also, if you're a 6-win football program, you're sitting there going, all right, we've already made a bowl game. We're good. But also if you're sitting there at 5-6 or 5-7, man, you're wanting that extra games. So I don't know how you'd handle that.
Well, and I think too, like the COVID year, they thought about pairing the teams, to play an extra game without necessarily it meaning anything to advance in a conference playoff type of situation. Again, I don't know. I think that there's a way to do all of this and figure all of it out, regardless of whatever number they come up with. They will. I mean, they'll figure out a way to figure out a champion. Again, I just think it means maybe less of what we think. Is there a need for a conference championship game? Maybe there will be. Maybe they'll continue to do it. Maybe they won't. Non-con games. Maybe not. Maybe they will. So, I mean, like you said, traditional rivalries, a lot of these things are you still going to protect your rivalries?
Like the game, Michigan-Ohio State probably is not dead. Like Thunder Not Collins, you're right. It's probably not dead.
I think they'll still protect rivalries.
They'll still protect some of them.
Yeah.
but like Nebraska, for example, Nebraska, Iowa, they might be in the same division, so that helps out from a geographic standpoint. And Bach, I do want to talk geographic things real quick, because Wet Blanket says, slow down, Nick. Expanding geographic footprint isn't necessarily a good thing for a conference. Increased geographic size creates increased travel costs for sports not called football. I understand where that's coming from, but I go back to what we talked about last summer. And if a conference was worried about, and this is just the seismic shift in collegiate athletics, if the conferences were worried about travel, then the Big Ten would have never added USC, UCLA. If they saw that as a priority, they would have never added USC, UCLA. Because you could even argue, yes, the Rutgers, the Penn State trips to USC or vice versa are going to be exhausting. They are. I don't know all the logistics of it. I don't know if you can go directly on a charter flight. I don't know if there's enough gas in plane. Like, I don't know all the details, but you're getting to a potential, like, you might have to land, have a connecting flight. You might have to land, fill up on gas. Like those little details. If the Big Ten or any of the conferences were worried about it, they wouldn't have added USC, UCLA. They were more concerned about money there. And that includes for sports, not football. So when I say for the Big 12 conference, that's for the most part centrally located now. Cincinnati to Cal is a shorter distance than Rutgers to Cal. And same with Texas. Texas to Stanford is going to be shorter than it would be from Penn State to Stanford. Like, I hate to say it, and it's not morally correct, but they're not worried about the travel because they don't see these guys as college, or guys and gals as college athletes anymore.
Well, and I mean, they've made it very clear they want to be in all 4 time zones. The goal of the Big 12, it was to expand nationwide, and they're doing that and have done that already. And it also should be noted, and I think that this is important for people to understand too. Again, all these moves based on football and really the college football, we see it now. I mean, if you can't see that the money's there, and that is basically a semi-professional league and really a professional league, because college football is, if you just take, pro and college out of it, one of the top leagues in the nation, then I don't know how to help you there if you can't see that. The other thing is, I think similar to baseball, where you don't play every team in the conference, I think these non-money making sports, you're going to play your regional conference opponents. And then, and then the football team, it's like the NFL. You can travel nationwide. Their money's there. It'll be an adjustment, but it's not going to be a problem. But I think when you're looking at the other sports, basketball makes money. So, maybe you see all those trips, and that'll be a little bit weird for a 1.5 hour game or whatever. But I think what somebody said on the text line too is again, what this hurts is the fans. Fans can't, absolutely. Some of these trips would be vacation trips. You can't make all these trips year in and year out unless you absolutely have the money to do so. And I should say game in and game out. And so and the other thing is attendance. Because of that, you're going to probably take a hit in attendance here and there, other than places where you're going to rock a home crowd one way or the other.
Well, and so I do want to mention that, and I enjoy like Wet Blanket because I enjoy the pushback, and I enjoy getting tested, or not tested, but having an actual debate on this. Yeah, exactly. And so Wet Blanket says the value of USC and UCLA clearly offsets the cost. Does Cal and Utah? And what I would respond to that is that the Big Ten's not looking at those two schools. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe those two schools don't offset the cost for the Big Ten, but I think they certainly do for the Big 12. Big 12 with Cal and Utah, they are firmly that number 3 conference, right? You could even argue that right now they're firmly the number 3 conference. But imagine if the Big 12 gets those Cal and Utah, and they also get ASU and Arizona. I mean, that you're talking about expanding west, and that flight from Cincinnati to Utah is not bad. The flight from Utah to Cal is not bad, obviously. Same with Arizona to Cincinnati. So I think it's situational, Wet Blanket, and I think that those two schools like Cal and Stanford might not offset the cost for the Big Ten, but I think they offset the cost for a Big 12 conference that's still trying to just stake their claim as college football's or college athletics number 3 power conference.
Well, and again, the positioning of the Big 12 has been fantastic. If you want to say who's the number 3 conference, I mean, at least in the ACC, you still have some powers there. But those powers are likely to get poached, and that's why you're kind of putting the Big 12 there. So, lot still more to figure out as we move forward, and that's why the speculation will continue to be crazy as we are moving to an 18-team conference in the Big 10. Let's break down a little more.
Is there a name change on the horizon?
I don't think there's a need for that. I mean, the Big 10's been the big. I think the branding there is already there, unless they talk to Elon Musk. Just go with your favorite letter, and you can change it to whatever. But yeah,
this is welcome in. It's an X versus Y showdown. Big 10 SEC.
But at least the SEC still makes sense because it is the Southeastern Conference.
It
the Big
is.
10 doesn't make so much sense. But let's talk a little bit more how about all this affects Nebraska. We'll do that coming up next year on 93.7 The Ticket. This is the Ticket Water Cooler.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. Robotics club or space club and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? No, forget that. How about a margarita club? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge and join the best club in town. 10 flavors of margarita like Maui Wow, burnt pineapple, and mango tango. Try all 10 of them and receive your own souvenir margarita glass. Make it your new Monday night tradition. $4 margarita, $4 taco basket. Grab the crew for Monday nights or any night. Upside Bar, 20th and Pine Lake.
Integrated Life Choices has been inspiring our with disabilities for more than 15 years in Lincoln and across Nebraska by offering a number of services. From group homes to independent living resources and job training, you'll find the support that allows people to live fulfilling lives. They're also hiring. If you're looking for a rewarding career supporting people with developmental disabilities, you can check out open positions along with learning more about services at il.net. Life Choices. Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole Wellness, how to achieve goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketm.com.
You've driven by GE Landscape Supply countless times, likely without even knowing, at 6701 Corsker Highway. Now it's time to stop in. GE Landscape supplies to homeowners and contractors with a vast selection of landscaping and construction materials. They sell in bulk to save you money, and you can buy anything from a 5-gallon bucket to a semi-load. And don't forget, they deliver where? Stop by 6701 Cornersker Highway from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday and 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Go to GELandscapeSupply.com for more info or call 402-467-1627.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award, professional skills, and make connections. You build your career. If you're ready, you can ask a service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you're in Lincoln, Waverly, or the surrounding area, listen up. Select Plumbing gets it right the first time on a variety of issues for your home business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet and fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. Plus, for plumbers. If you're in Lincoln, Waverly, or the surrounding area, contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
This is Bud Seinhorst, President and CEO of LIBA, the Lincoln Independent Business Association. Join us every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 The Ticket for the LIBA Business Hour, as we discuss local business and highlight those who are thriving in the Lincoln area. It's the LIBA Business Hour, Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. on 93.7 and theticketf.com.
Here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service, bumper to bumper, we'll treat you like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
I heard you and Jack had a disagreement.
Yeah, he says I keep things from him.
What are you going to do?
He loves the Nebraska Lottery's Powerball First Millionaire of the Year promotion. So I'll buy a Powerball with Power Play and Double Play before August 14th, and I could be one of 15 winners of $1,000. I'll also be entered for a chance to win a trip to New York City receive and a
$1,000? That should make him happy.
Depends.
On what?
If I decide to tell him I won.
Powerball top prize odds 1 in 292 million.
What are you doing, hon? I thought we were going to start Powerball with Power Play and Double Play tickets.
Hold on. I have to sit through this video meeting.
I don't want to miss my dollar.
But these win bags to speed it up.
Dave, you're not on mute.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Play Powerball from the Nebraska Lottery. Top prize odds 1 in 292 million.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. The home of Kansas City Royals baseball. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Back to the Ticket water cooler on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back on a hectic day on the Ticket water cooler. Oregon and Washington, all but official, joining the Big Ten, setting up a new age for college athletics and certainly college football and the Big Ten in general. I guess when you think about it, it's not hard to think too much about what this means for Nebraska, which is just more trips out to the West Coast. And we really just don't have the answers until you can kind of see divisions. Again, I think possibility if they go back to divisions or if they go to pods at Nebraska, because they're somewhat Western as far as the current construction goes, might really be lumped into those West Coast teams in a pod.
Here's what's crazy, Buck. So I've during the break, I was thinking more of like scheduling and stuff, right? There's a lot of, and I'm paying attention to like Oregon beat writers and stuff like that now. There's of scheduling things that now the Big Ten has to sort out. All the schedules that they sent out for 2024 going to be changed.
Yeah.
All the schedules that said which frankly might help Nebraska out in 2025.
Yes.
Very much so. Like very, very much so. But also all the non-cons that like Oregon had scheduled with the Big Ten, gone. Like they're not going to be able to play those as originally scheduled. So because there's going to be reshuffling, right? Because like I know Oregon has a 2025 and 2026 game scheduled. Okay, so here, this comes from James Crepea from the Oregonian, says, or he mentions this on a tweet that he says, and he's been one of these that's kind of really been following the whole thing out in Eugene. And he says, Oregon suddenly has 5 openings from 2024 to 2028. They have a head-to-head with Michigan State and Ohio State that's now opening up. And Washington has 4 FCS games that were scheduled and a Michigan game that was scheduled. Well, you say, why does the FCS matter? The Big Ten doesn't allow you to schedule FCS opponents, right? So with all that in mind, there's going to be a lot of just changes where if for some odd reason the conferences don't go to conference-only schedules, then maybe we do see an Apple Cup stay between Washington and Washington State, or a game between Oregon and Oregon State. Those are still a possibility if, I guess, they don't go to a conference-only schedule. But the whole scheduling piece of it, and even for Nebraska, because I know we want to put a Nebraska spin on it, is going to be interesting to see. Because if they do go divisions, Nebraska is probably going to be on the Western one of the more Western schools. They could be involved in Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, if they will. And it's going to be kind of weird because those are going to be the 5 newest schools, and they all kind of feel like they really don't fit in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, your traditional thought of kind of the 3 yards and a cloud of dust conference is changing up a little bit because there's different kind of a West Coast approach now.
That's what's wild. There's not going to be a Big Ten identity.
Not at certain regions, I think, but still as the conference as a whole, no.
No, not as the conference. Like we came in, Nebraska, that is, came in and it was like, all right, Nebraska's going to switch to this identity of big hard-nosed football, similar to what the Big 12 North used to be. And we're going to have this rejuvenized identity. We've had that under Matt Rule, I suppose. But now it's like for these teams, you don't really have to. You don't really, I mean, because if you're lucky enough to where you're able to play in the Western part of the country, maybe you don't need to run the ball, 70% of the time in November out in California. Like maybe you don't. It's going to be real interesting to see how the game changes.
Well, and again, this has been football's making so much money for so long. The NIL, the transfer portal, now conference realignment, all this stuff is basically happening. Because of that. Now some of the money is being spread across, and now the people that had to spread across the money are looking for different ways to make more money. But I think it also might be time, and I've said this for years too, to start to treat it a little bit more like a professional league. This whole, like any of this stuff being done for athletics in the student before athlete, right? It is fading. I mean, that whole veil of doing everything from the NCAA for the student athlete, it's gone. You can't even, it's inarguable at this point. So I think you might have to kind of change the way that you look at it from that standpoint. And the colleges, it's basically grandfathered in with the teams. So I'm not saying, break away from the colleges or anything, but I think you do. Like we were listening to the Washington State coach during the break, Jake Dickert, I believe is his name. Yep. And he was kind of talking about the travel and how much that's going to weigh on these college kids. And you just kind of think, are they going to basically go to just online stuff?
And as sad as it is to say, the last 3 years have shown that you can get a degree online.
Right.
You can get a degree from the University of Nebraska, basically virtual.
Yeah.
Maybe throughout like the spring classes when football's not in session, or vice versa for like basketball and baseball, where in the fall and their season's not full go. Maybe they can go to the few in person that they need to. But I think also there's something to be said. College athletes talk about it all the time, where when they're on the buses, they're doing homework. You're going to have as I don't mean to sound rude. I don't want this to come across rude, but I don't know how else to phrase it. You're going to have to do your homework on the plane. Like that's just part of it now. You're going to have to take exams on the planes. Like that's just how it's going to be, because they're not going to worry about an exam when you're bringing in $70 million a year.
Well, and again too, I think it's
that came across really rude.
Well,
and
it is what it is,
and real like just brutal.
Yeah.
But and I don't mean it that way, but that's just kind of how it's going to be now.
Again, in athletics or excuse me, the academic side has kind of been pushed to the back in all of this. And you know what? I guess if there's enough money there, then maybe this should have been the case all along. But and I've been arguing for years. I don't know if there's a reason for that necessarily for that to be connected, other than the fact that it's grandfathered in. That's kind of where it started with these colleges. But with this beginning more and more to look like a pro league and everything's done for money reasons. The academic side is kind of left behind, and you wonder what the importance of that is, how important that is. Do we need to pretend like these football players, I suppose, are on the same level as the other, students? I don't think so. So, I think there's just needs to be some rethought and refocus in that area of it too. So we'll see what happens.
I think what's crazy, Bach, and we said this yesterday. During this time frame in August, we're usually talking about, and this is why we're able to go. It's probably going to be 2 hours of this at some point, because Austin and I are going to dive deep in this, and especially what it means for other sports, and look at like what does the addition of Oregon basketball do for the Big Ten, and the same way that like what does Arizona basketball do for the Big 12. It's crazy the landscape that's changing in college sports. And I think down the road in 20, 30 years, you might have some shifts again, but this is potentially the biggest and most the size, the biggest shift in collegiate athletics that we're ever going to see.
Yeah, this is, because it's the monumental moves that are going to set up for basically the pro league.
Yeah.
That it's going to look like. So
like you may have a team moving from the Big 10 to the Big 12, or you might have a team that moves from the Mountain West to the Big 12. But like we're talking like one or two.
Yeah,
there's never going to be a shift of this caliber throughout all of collegiate athletics, I think, ever again.
Yeah, this is
because, as you said, you can never go back.
Yeah, the Pac-12 has been around for 100 years or plus or whatever, and today's the day where it will never go back to where it was. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, they'll talk more about this on the Happy Hour coming up next, all throughout the day on 93.7 The Ticket.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place with superior service, bumper to bumper. Will treat your mother. Doesn't get 402 488 84. 5% off. Mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402 488 8934. HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
This is former Husker and NFL linebacker Jay Foreman. For years, I've suffered from degenerative problems in both of my ankles, but thanks to a thorough and thought-out plan provided by Advanced Medical Imaging, I was able to get my life back with the least amount of pain as possible. While working through multiple options, the team of physicians at Advanced Medical Imaging were there to answer any questions I had. If you're experiencing any pain at all and want to get your life back, go to amimaging.com or give them a call at 402-484-6677. Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard.
Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul. Smoked meats, amazing sides. The only problem when they fix you a plate is that at some point, that plate will be empty. But hear me out. What if that plate was never empty? That dream can be your reality with the Mary Ellen's Express Lunch Buffet. From 11 to 2 every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. One price, all you can eat, and it even comes with a drink. Tell your boss you're taking a long lunch and get down there. Mary Ellen's Food for the Soul at 29th and Pine Lake. Let them fix you a plate.
Are you working in or looking to get into the electrical construction industry? The Electrical Workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, fitness goals, or through gym owners. It's Fit 93 Ticket and theticket.com.
Gambling can destroy an individual's finances, relationships, physical, and mental health. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's 24-hour helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 402-476-2300.
Gray Diesel and Equipment Services is your go-to place in Lincoln for repairs and maintenance for diesel pickups to Class 8 over-the-road trucks and trailers, from bumper pole utility to full-size semi. Gray performs DOT inspections and are a service provider for fleet companies like Pride, Elliott, Flint, Night. Easy access just off I-80 Street.
Iron Heights